Watsons for your hospitality and inviting all your friends, family, neighbors, all these good folks from Ashland County and the surrounding region to this this great day. And you couldn't order better weather, huh?
No.
It's awesome. I want to thank you. First of all, it's an absolute honor and a privilege to serve you in Washington. I never dreamed I was going to do this. When I got off active duty, I was going to go fly for the airlines and wound up somehow now in Washington, D.C. But our country needs strong leadership there. And while I remind people, and especially my opponent, that the challenges that we have faced didn't begin when I took the oath. They had been happening for quite some time, and I've learned quickly because I was sworn in, and shortly after that I was sworn at. So I've taken it all in stride. But I'm reminded, my dad was studying to become a Catholic priest. Thank God he left, but I wouldn't be here. But he told me this story about a nun who joined the silent convent. They were only allowed to say 2 words at the end of every year. So at the end of the first year, Sister Mary Catherine's sitting down with Mother Superior, and Mother Superior's like, well, Sister Mary Catherine, you've been here for a year. Give us 2 words. They're going to take us into the next with confidence. And she says, bed hard. Oh, Sister, we'll work on getting you a new bed. Don't worry. At the end of the second year, Sister Mary Catherine again is sitting down with Mother Superior, and she said, now, Sister Mary Catherine, you've been here for 2 years now. You've only spoken 2 words. Give us 2. 2 words are going to take us into the next year with confidence. She said, food stinks. Sister, we're working on getting a new chef. Don't you worry about this. Now the 3rd year comes along, and Sister Mary Catherine again is in Mother Superior's office, hadn't said but 4 words, 3 years. And Mother Superior's like, look, Sister, you've been here for 3 years. You've spoken only 4 words. Surely you have something to say that's going to lead us into the next with confidence and hope. She said, I quit. I said, well, it's probably for the best because you've been complaining since you arrived. And I feel that folks have had, certainly a lot to complain about because of some of the decisions that have been made in Washington that have put our country in a path that we've come through now, the greatest recession since the Great Depression. That families across the country have been affected by this economy and our economic condition. And when I left office, or began office rather, we were in economic free fall. We didn't know where our economy was going to land. We were faced with 2 undeclared, unfunded wars with borrowed money from China, exploding deficits. We were faced with unregulated greed on Wall Street and a banking system that wasn't lending to our small businesses so that we could help create jobs and grow the economy. And so just one of those challenges was enough for any one Congress to tackle. But you get all 5 of those and it feels like you have, you're getting shot at. And you got all these balls in the air, and you're trying to figure out which one to grab to address, and which one is the most important. So the president quickly worked with Congress to enact a stimulus bill, which was supposed to be a backstop against further job loss, to create some jobs along the way, and to bring our country back from the cliff that we were headed towards. Now, to use an aviation analogy, and I think I'm qualified to do that, right, Steve?
Yep. We
were headed for the ground, right? And they teach you this simple rule in aviation: when the trees get bigger, that's a bad thing. So we pulled back and started climbing away, and we're adding power. We enacted the stimulus bill. We've made investments in our people. We've invested in things that are going to make our economy and grow our economy and make it stronger. And now what we've seen from where we were a year ago to where we are today, we see that we're in a much better place. The first month in office, we lost 700,000 jobs. In 2010, we've grown almost 800,000 private sector jobs. Is it enough? No. We still have a lot of work left to do to get people back to work. But this was a long and deep recession that these folks got us into. And now we're moving ahead, and we're climbing away, and we're adding power as we're starting to gain altitude. We've had 11 consecutive months of manufacturing output increases. Ohio itself has created hundreds of thousands of manufacturing jobs. And we're seeing now that when we invest in our manufacturing and in a policy that when we grow it, build it, and assemble it here, our country is going to be stronger. We know that when we make things, we produce wealth, and not just move wealth around on Wall Street. That's when our country is at its strongest. And that's the investments that we've made in our workforce, our greatest asset in the people, retraining them, getting back up to speed and out back into the workforce. Those are the things that are going to make our country stronger. And then we tackled some of the big issues on Wall Street where folks were taking bets against you that you were going to fail in paying your mortgage. And we said, no, you need to play by the rules. And we went after the credit card companies and said, quit gouging people while they're in their, while they're in this tough economic times. So we made them play by fair rules, and we reformed Wall Street so that you people, our taxpayers in the country, in our country, would never have to bail out Wall Street folks again in the bad bets that they make. And then we wanted to tackle the big energy issue. This is one that's very close and dear to me and personal, quite frankly, because I just finished with major rotations over in Iraq and Afghanistan. And I have to tell you that if we invest in a policy that moves away from our dependence on foreign oil and creates jobs here in America that can't be outsourced, that is a winning strategy for our nation. When we invest in things like solar panels, photovoltaic, when we invest in wind turbines, where you have 8,000 manufactured parts that are in a wind turbine, 200 tons of steel. The ball bearings are made in our congressional district at Timken. When you invest in things like fuel cells, so that you can have this chemical reaction and produce hundreds of thousands of hours of electricity. I mean, those are the things that will make our country stronger, because when you invest in innovation and when you invest in technology, that follows manufacturing. And we've got to do better than we've done in the past, because while we've researched and developed computers and cell phones in this country, they're manufacturing them overseas. That's why we've got to hold countries like China to account to make sure that they play by fair rules. We're going after them to make sure that they're not dumping steel and dumping products like rubber and undermining our manufacturing, our domestic manufacturing, because we know that when we grow it, build it, and assemble it here in this country, our country is economically secure and our national security is much stronger because of that. You know, we import 66% of our oil from overseas. 40% comes from the Middle East. And the single largest user of energy in the United States is the Department of Defense. It's the Department of Defense. And they're not waiting for politicians to make these decisions of what to invest in. They've already started flying fighter jets on vegetable oil. They're trying to fly C-130s and tankers now on synthetic fuel, which is a derivative of coal. They're making these research because they know that our nation is perilously close to being so dependent on foreign oil that our national security is at risk. We send $1 billion every day, leaves America, that goes over to nations in the Middle East that are funding both sides of the wars that we're fighting on. So we have got to make this decision for our economic security and our national security. We passed an energy bill that makes these strategic investments. Unfortunately, it's being demagogued by an issue that was actually a Republican idea. It was actually a Republican proposal. You know, back in the 1980s, Ronald Reagan used a free market approach that used innovation and high technology to take lead out of gasoline. And then George Bush, President Bush, the first Bush, used an innovation, high technology, free market approach to take sulfuric acid out of the acid rain that was falling across the country. A free market, drove technology, lowered our energy rates by 10%, and during that period of time that George Bush was implementing this free market approach, we had created almost 16 million jobs. John McCain and Sarah Palin campaigned on this issue. It was part of their platform when they ran. Right. They said it was a free market approach that can move our country down the field with energy technology and technology that we don't want outsourced. You know, that thing has saved money, created jobs. That free market approach is called cap and trade. But only in Washington can you propose an idea, introduce legislation, and then campaign against it. And that's exactly what's happening right now. And that, to me, is not strong leadership. You know, folks, we need strong leadership in Washington. And we need to put referees back on the field. My broad political philosophy is to let the government set the out-of-bounds markers, and the goalposts, let the free market operate in between and play in between, but be a good referee. When someone goes out of bounds, throw the flag. It's a flagrant foul when we don't hold BP to account to make sure that they have backup pumps so the Gulf tragedy didn't happen. It's a tragedy when we take referees off the field through our political policy in Washington, and we allow bankers on Wall Street to bet against you to pay your mortgage. Really? And it is a tragedy when we take the referees off the field who aren't going to throw the flag and call a foul when insurance companies are dumping people from their insurance even though they've paid their premium. Yeah. So we took on the healthcare industry and we said, look, we're going to make sure that kids can stay on their insurance plan until they're 26. We're going to make sure we end pre-existing conditions for children. We're going to make sure that we end the lifetime caps so that folks can get treatment when they need it.
Thank you.
We're going to make sure that small businesses have the opportunity to get a tax credit this year and up to 50% by 2014 if they offer health care insurance. We're going to promote competition by allowing insurance companies to compete across state lines now, instead of the monopoly that we have in Ohio and across the country. And we're going to make sure we protect our seniors. We've extended the life of Medicare. We've extended by 13 years. We're closing the donut hole over the next 10 so that prescription drugs are going to be more affordable. And we're making sure that those private companies that were privatized under Ronald Reagan are playing by fair rules. Because right now, when they said in 1980 that they were going to save us 5% from traditional Medicare, the trust fund's paying them over 20%. And they're draining the Medicare trust fund, and we said no more. If you offer a plan that offers high quality and low cost, you're going to be rewarded, but we're going to make sure that we protect traditional Medicare. And my promise to seniors is that we are not going to privatize Social Security. There are many folks who want to send Social Security to Wall Street, and we're going to say no, okay? Because we don't want folks taking bad bets against Social Security like they have on the housing market. So we're here in this district. It's a swing district. This is one of the 30 swing districts in the country where the Democrat, Republican registration's even. And, this is Battlefield 2010. And you stood with me, you fought with me. In 2008, we won a seat that, by all practical purposes, has been one of the most swing districts in the country. But yet we had a good, decent, honorable man in Ralph Regula representing the seat. And he held that seat for 36 years, despite it being one of the swing districts in the country. Because he believed, like I do, that it's about the people. He also believed that we shouldn't be outsourcing our jobs and we shouldn't be sending our jobs overseas. And he voted against NAFTA. And this year we just voted to close those tax loopholes that help ship our jobs overseas. Ralph Regula, yes, Barb, you can clap to that. Because we're saying that no longer are we going to allow big corporations to do that to our country. And while we've taken these strong positions against China and against some of these trade policies that outsourced our jobs, we see now that the United States Chamber of Commerce in China and in India and all around the country, around the globe rather, are raising money from foreign entities and foreign governments to use in the electoral process right now, after the Supreme Court said they could spend whatever they want. So while I put my life on the line for this country, flying missions overseas, putting myself in harm's way because my country asked me to, now foreign governments and foreign entities are going to affect my service to the United States Congress and to the United States government. And I think that is a tragic day for this country. And we have got to stand up. The Supreme Court rolled back 100 years of congressional law to give this freedom to corporations. And we have got to go back and say no. The Congress